In the quiet corners of creation, power takes many forms across endless worlds and forgotten histories. The Dragon Ball universe holds civilizations that emerged from different stars, each carrying abilities shaped by their origins and environments. Some races were born with strength woven into their biology, while others discovered it through evolution, circumstance, or the slow passage of countless generations. Tonight, we'll drift through the stories of these species, examining what made them formidable, how they came to possess their unique gifts, and why certain bloodlines became legends whispered across galaxies. Before settling in, you can subscribe for more gentle Dragon Ball videos made for rest. And I'd also love to know where you're listening from tonight as we explore how physical traits combined with spiritual energy to create beings capable of reshaping reality itself. Pilaf Gang's race, while never officially named in any canonical source, represents one of the earliest species encountered in Akira Toriyama's original Dragon Ball manga. Emperor Pilaf himself stands as the most recognizable member, a small imp-like being with blue skin and pointed ears, who sought the Dragon Balls to fulfill his dream of world domination. His physical stature barely reached 3 feet tall, yet his ambition stretched far beyond such limitations. What made Pilaf's species interesting wasn't raw combat ability, but rather their capacity for mechanical innovation and strategic thinking. Throughout the original series, Pilaf demonstrated remarkable engineering skills, constructing elaborate castles, aircraft, and machinery that rivaled even Capsule Corporation's early technology. His airship alone featured advanced weaponry and detection systems that allowed him to track Dragon Ball signatures across vast distances. The race seemed to possess natural longevity as well. Pilaf appeared in Dragon Ball Super decades after his initial appearance, looking virtually unchanged despite the passage of time. This suggested either an extended lifespan or extremely slow aging process compared to humans. His physical durability also exceeded human norms, surviving falls and impacts that would prove fatal to ordinary people. Members of this species displayed heightened intelligence, focused primarily on invention and scheming rather than martial prowess. Pilaf's elaborate plans, though often foiled by his own incompetence or Goku's intervention, showed sophisticated understanding of logistics, resource management, and technological application. He constructed death traps, mobile fortresses, and detection equipment using principles that human scientists of Earth struggled to comprehend. Their weakness lay in physical combat capabilities. Without technology or numbers advantage, individuals from Pilaf's race posed minimal threat in direct confrontation. Pilaf himself fled from nearly every physical altercation, relying on his machines, hired muscle, or escape vehicles rather than engaging enemies personally. This pattern suggested the race evolved in environments where intelligence and tool use mattered more than natural weapons or fighting ability. The species demonstrated moderate energy manipulation potential when given proper training or equipment. During the Super Era, Pilaf acquired access to advanced technology that temporarily enhanced his capabilities, though he never pursued martial arts training or energy control techniques that might have elevated his combat effectiveness. This indicated that while the race possessed the biological capacity for key manipulation, cultural emphasis on technology overshadowed such development. Social structure among Pilaf's kind remained largely unexplored in official materials. He appeared as the sole representative of his species throughout most story arcs, suggesting either rarity or isolation from any larger population. His self-appointed title of emperor implied either delusion or legitimate authority over unseen subjects somewhere beyond the narrative's focus. Archaeological evidence never surfaced regarding their homeworld or origin point. Reproductive biology and child development stayed completely unaddressed in any Dragon Ball media. No young members of the species ever appeared, nor did any references to family structures or breeding patterns emerge. This absence might indicate asexual reproduction, extremely long generation gaps, or simply Toriyama's lack of interest in developing minor species backgrounds during the original manga's run. Even so, their contribution to Dragon Ball's technological landscape couldn't be dismissed entirely. The Konatsians emerged from planet Konats, a world that produced warriors of remarkable skill despite relatively modest power levels compared to universe-spanning threats. Tapion and his younger brother Minotia represented the most prominent examples of this race, appearing in the 13th Dragon Ball Z film. They stood at average human height with slightly pointed ears and distinctive clothing that reflected their culture's aesthetic preferences. What distinguished Konatsians was their deep connection to mystical instruments and sealing techniques. Tapion wielded an enchanted ocarina capable of containing the upper half of the monster Hirodegarn within his own body, demonstrating both courage and mastery over ancient magical arts. The melody he played wasn't merely music, but a binding spell passed down through generations, suggesting the Konatsians developed sophisticated magical traditions alongside their martial practices. Their civilization achieved remarkable advancement before Hirodegarn's rampage destroyed it. Historical fragments indicated they built cities with architecture blending organic curves and crystalline structures, creating harmony between their settlements and Konat's natural environment. Mystical knowledge was preserved in temples where priests studied both combat techniques and spiritual disciplines, preparing guardians who could face supernatural threats beyond normal warriors' capabilities. Physical attributes placed Konatsians roughly equal to trained human fighters. They possessed no inherent transformations or biological advantages like Saiyans, relying instead on technique refinement and magical knowledge. Tapion demonstrated impressive swordsmanship and energy control despite lacking formal martial arts training in the Z-fighter style. His brother Minotia showed similar potential before his tragic death during Hirodegarn's initial appearance. The race's most significant weakness was vulnerability to beings exceeding their magical containment capabilities. While Tapion successfully imprisoned half of Hirodegarn for centuries, the seal required constant vigilance and drained his energy over time. Eventually, the monster's power grew beyond what the music box and ocarina could contain, forcing Tapion to seek help from Goku and the Z-fighters on Earth. Cultural values emphasize duty and sacrifice above personal welfare. Tapion accepted the burden of containing Hirodegarn despite knowing it would trap him in isolation for potentially thousands of years. He refused to place others at risk and attempted to handle the threat alone, only accepting assistance when the situation became truly desperate. This selflessness defined Konatsian heroism. Magical aptitude appeared genetic rather than learned, though training certainly enhanced natural abilities. Not every Konsan could perform sealing techniques or channel energy through musical instruments. Those who possessed the talent underwent rigorous preparation from childhood, learning melodies that carried power and studying ancient texts describing proper ritual procedures. The knowledge was precious, carefully guarded and transmitted only to worthy students. Still, their extinction left gaps in the universe's understanding of magical combat that would never be filled. The Metamorans originated from planet Metamor, a world that perfected fusion techniques, allowing two warriors to merge into a single, vastly more powerful being. This race appeared humanoid with variations in skin tone and build, though their most famous contribution to Dragon Ball's legacy was the fusion dance itself. Goku learned the technique from Metamoran warriors while training in Otherworld between his death-fighting Cell and his temporary return for the World Martial Arts Tournament. What made Metamorans exceptional was their systematic approach to fusion technology, where other species stumbled upon power combinations through accidents or desperation. The Metamorans refined fusion into a teachable discipline with specific poses, timing requirements, and energy synchronization protocols. The dance itself looked ridiculous to outsiders, but every motion served a purpose in aligning the fusees' energy signatures. Individual Metamorans demonstrated combat abilities comparable to well-trained human fighters, suggesting they evolved on a planet with moderate environmental challenges but nothing requiring extreme physical adaptation. Their true genius lay in recognizing that cooperation could transcend individual limitations. By developing fusion methods that temporarily combined warriors' power levels multiplicatively rather than additively, they created a technique that could elevate average fighters to universe-threatening levels. The fusion dance required perfect symmetry and timing between participants. Both fusees needed similar power levels, otherwise the fusion failed or produced a weakened, malformed result. The dance took approximately 30 seconds to complete properly, during which both warriors remained vulnerable to attack. These limitations prevented casual use during combat and required strategic planning before engaging opponents. Once successfully fused, the resulting warrior possessed combined knowledge, skills, and personality traits from both original individuals. Gotenks, the fusion of Goten and Trunks, demonstrated abilities neither child could perform independently while exhibiting personality quirks reflecting both contributors. The fusion lasted exactly 30 minutes before automatically separating, after which participants needed to wait an hour before attempting another fusion. Metamoran culture apparently revolved around martial excellence and constant improvement through training. The warriors Goku met in Otherworld practiced the fusion dance endlessly, perfecting their synchronization and exploring new combat applications. This dedication suggested a society valuing discipline, partnership, and the pursuit of strength through cooperative effort rather than individual glory. Environmental conditions on Metamor remained largely unexplored in official materials. The planet presumably possessed gravity and atmospheric compositions similar to Earth, since Metamorans displayed no special adaptations for extreme conditions. Their clothing style suggested temperate climates and advanced textile production, though whether they developed space travel or remained isolated until discovered by galactic traders stayed unclear. The race's weakness lay in their dependence on cooperation for accessing peak performance. A solitary Metamoran possessed respectable fighting skills, but nothing extraordinary compared to other warrior races. Their fusion technique, while powerful, couldn't overcome massive power disparities if both participants started significantly weaker than their opponent. Additionally, the time limit and cooldown period created tactical vulnerabilities that clever enemies could exploit. Perhaps their greatest gift was sharing their knowledge so freely across the universe. The Yardrats inhabited planet Yardrat, a world known throughout the cosmos for spiritual techniques that defied conventional understanding of physics and energy manipulation. These beings appeared humanoid with tentacle-like appendages instead of hair and wore distinctive patterned clothing. Goku spent roughly 1 year on their planet after escaping Namek's explosion, learning the instant transmission technique that would save his life countless times in future battles. What elevated Yardrats above simple martial artists was their mastery of spirit control, a discipline far exceeding basic ki manipulation. While most warriors learned to sense and channel energy, Yardrats studied the fundamental nature of consciousness and its connection to physical reality. Their techniques allowed manipulation of one's own spirit energy with precision that bordered on reality warping. Instant transmission, their most famous ability, enabled users to teleport anywhere in the universe instantly by locking on to specific energy signatures. The technique required intense concentration and clear mental focus on the destination's key signature. Goku used it to travel between planets, escape death traps, and position himself advantageously during combat. The ability's only limitation was requiring a recognizable energy source at the destination. Yardrats also taught techniques for increasing physical size, a skill called gigantification that drew on spirit control principles to temporarily expand one's body mass and density. The transformation wasn't purely cosmetic, it genuinely increased the user's physical strength and durability proportional to their new size. However, maintaining the enlarged state demanded constant energy expenditure, making prolonged use impractical during extended battles. Healing abilities represented another application of Yardrat's spiritual mastery. Advanced practitioners could transfer their life energy to injured allies, accelerating recovery and even reversing otherwise fatal damage. This technique carried significant risk, since overuse could drain the healer's own vitality to dangerous levels. Only the most skilled yard rats attempted healing during combat situations where maintaining personal energy reserves was crucial. The yard rat cloning technique allowed warriors to create temporary duplicates of themselves, each possessing a fraction of the original's power. Unlike simple after-image illusions, these clones existed as semi-physical constructs capable of independent action and basic combat maneuvers. Creating multiple clones divided the user's energy among them, so producing too many weakened both the original and copies to uselessness. Forced spirit fission, perhaps their most dangerous ability, enabled a yard rat to separate fused or absorbed beings back into their original components. Vegeta learned this technique during his training on Yard Rat before the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc. He used it against Moro to strip the villain of his absorbed power, demonstrating the technique's potential to completely neutralize certain types of power-ups or transformations. Yard Rat society emphasized spiritual development and community welfare over individual achievement. Their teachers freely shared techniques with worthy students regardless of species, seeing knowledge as a gift meant for spreading rather than hoarding. This generosity explained why Goku received training despite arriving as a stranger, though he needed to demonstrate sincere desire to learn before instruction began. In time, their influence spread through students carrying their teachings to distant worlds. The Tuffle race once thrived on Planet Plant before the Saiyans' arrival forever altered their civilization's trajectory. These beings possessed advanced technology far exceeding anything Earth would develop for centuries, creating sprawling cities with energy shields, gravity manipulation, and cybernetic enhancement systems. They stood shorter than average humans with gray skin and large heads, suggesting evolutionary emphasis on intellectual development over physical prowess. What made Tuffles remarkable was their scientific achievement despite relatively weak combat abilities. While Saiyans trained from birth for warfare, Tuffles built machines that could match or exceed biological warriors' capabilities. Their cities featured automated defense systems, energy weapons, and vehicles that gave them tactical advantages against the more primitive Saiyan tribes who initially shared Planet Plant's surface. The conflict between Tuffles and Saiyans unfolded over decades as the warrior race gradually conquered territory through superior fighting ability. Tuffles responded with increasingly sophisticated weapons and defensive installations, creating temporary stalemates where technology countered raw power. However, they failed to account for the Saiyan ability to grow stronger after each near-death experience, allowing the warrior race to eventually overcome even the most advanced Tuffle defenses. King Tuffle, their leader during the final war, commanded legions of mechanized soldiers and defensive platforms that killed countless Saiyans during the initial invasion attempts. His strategic mind recognized the Saiyans' growing threat early and implemented citywide fortifications meant to hold indefinitely against assault. The plan might have succeeded if not for the appearance of a full moon during a crucial battle. When Saiyans transformed into great apes for the first time during the conflict, Tuffle technology proved insufficient against a tenfold power increase. The giant apes demolished cities, crushed defensive barriers, and overwhelmed automated systems through sheer destructive force. Within days, the Tuffle civilization collapsed as Saiyans, in their transformed state, rampaged across the planet's surface. Survivors scattered across the galaxy, some escaping in ships before the final defeat, while others fell in the last desperate battles defending their homeworld. These refugees carried Tuffle knowledge to other planets, spreading their technology through trade and gradually rebuilding fragments of their lost society. However, they never regained the unity or resources necessary to challenge Saiyan control of their ancestral world. Dr. Lychee, appearing in the Dragon Ball Z side story, represented one such survivor who harbored deep hatred for Saiyans. He created the Hachiak device, a machine designed to amplify hatred into destructive power capable of destroying planet Vegeta. His work demonstrated the heights Tuffle Saiyans could reach when driven by vengeance rather than peaceful development. Baby, a parasitic Tuffle creation, emerged as perhaps their race's final attempt at revenge against the Saiyans. This artificial being possessed the ability to infect and control other organisms, spreading like a virus through populations and turning victims into Tuffle slaves. Baby's plan involved using Vegeta's body to recreate the Tuffle homeworld on Earth, demonstrating both scientific brilliance and the lasting trauma of their genocide. And yet, their extinction served as a reminder that technology alone couldn't guarantee survival. The Namekians evolved on planet Namek, a world with 3 suns that never experienced true night, creating unique conditions shaping their biology and culture. These beings reproduced asexually through egg-laying, eliminating traditional family structures and creating a society where every individual emerged from a single parent. Their green skin and antennae gave them distinctive appearances recognized across the galaxy, especially after their involvement in the Frieza saga brought them to wider attention. What separated Namekians from most species was their split into 2 distinct types, Dragon Clan and Warrior Clan. Dragon Clan members possessed the ability to create Dragon Balls, mystical artifacts capable of granting wishes when gathered together. This power stemmed from their deep connection to magic and reality manipulation, abilities other races could only access through years of training or not at all. Warrior Clan Namekians demonstrated formidable combat abilities, including energy manipulation, physical strength far exceeding humans, and the capacity to regenerate lost limbs provided their head remained intact. Piccolo, though technically the evil half of the nameless Namekian, showed the race's fighting potential by matching android-enhanced humans and eventually reaching levels where he could challenge Super Saiyans. The fusion ability represented another unique Namekian trait, allowing 2 individuals to permanently merge into a single being with combined power and knowledge. Unlike Metamoran fusion with its time limit or Potara fusion with its complications, Namekian fusion was permanent and unrestricted. Nail fused with Piccolo to provide strength needed against Frieza, while later Kami fused with Piccolo to create a warrior capable of fighting in perfect cell. Their regeneration ability came with limitations, however. Regrowing limbs required significant energy expenditure, leaving the Namekian temporarily weakened and vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Regenerating major body parts like entire arms demanded even more power, sometimes reducing the warrior's combat effectiveness by half until they could rest and recover. The ability also failed completely if the Namekian's head was destroyed. Namekian hearing surpassed most species by significant margins, allowing them to detect conversations at extreme distances or sense approaching enemies through sound alone. Their antennae functioned as sensitive audio receptors capable of picking up frequencies humans couldn't perceive. This made surprise attacks nearly impossible against alert Namekians, though it also meant loud noises could temporarily disorient them. Water requirements differed drastically for most carbon-based life forms. Namekians survived purely on water, requiring no solid food for sustenance. This adaptation allowed them to thrive in environments where conventional food sources were scarce or unreliable. Their homeworld featured vast oceans and frequent rainfall, creating ideal conditions for a species with such dietary needs. The Great Elder, known as Grand Elder Guru, possessed the ability to unlock hidden potential in other beings by placing his hand on their head and channeling his mystical energy. Krillin and Gohan both received this gift during their time on Namek, experiencing power increases that helped them survive encounters with the Frieza Force. The technique required no training from the recipient, simply revealing strength already present but dormant within them. Still, their peaceful nature sometimes left them vulnerable to more aggressive civilizations, seeking to exploit their gifts. The Kaio race served as overseers of the cardinal quadrants in the universe, divine beings responsible for monitoring mortal affairs and occasionally intervening when threats grew too severe for normal warriors to handle. King Kai, the North Kai, stood as the most prominent example, training Goku in techniques like the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb after the Saiyan died fighting Raditz. What defined Kaios was their position in the divine hierarchy and access to knowledge spanning thousands of years of cosmic history. King Kai lived on a tiny planet with gravity 10 times Earth's normal pull, creating a natural training ground where every movement required extraordinary effort. His planet orbited the sacred realm called the Grand Kai's Planet, itself located in other worlds beyond the reach of living mortals. The Kaioken technique King Kai developed allowed users to multiply their power level by surrounding themselves with a crimson aura of focused energy. The technique's multiplier could be adjusted from double to 10 times or even higher, though greater multiplications placed increasingly dangerous strain on the user's body. Goku used Kaioken times 3 against Vegeta during their first battle, pushing his body to the breaking point. Spirit Bomb creation represented King Kai's other major contribution to combat techniques. This ability gathered energy from living things across vast distances, compressing it into a sphere of pure power that could be hurled at evil opponents. The technique required time to charge and left the user vulnerable during preparation, making it impractical for most combat situations unless allies could buy time. Kaios possessed extended lifespans measuring in millions of years, allowing them to accumulate wisdom and observe patterns in mortal behavior over epochs. King Kai remembered events from thousands of years past with perfect clarity, providing historical context for current crises and recognizing threats mortals might mistake for isolated incidents. This perspective made them invaluable advisors when available. Their combat abilities, however, remained limited compared to the beings they monitored. King Kai himself avoided direct confrontation with villains, relying on mortals he trained to handle threats. This weakness in personal power meant Kaios depended entirely on finding and preparing champions capable of protecting the universe when evil arose beyond normal authorities' control. Grand Kai, the supreme leader of the four cardinal Kaios, demonstrated similar patterns. He hosted the Otherworld tournament, where deceased fighters from across the universe competed, serving as judge and referee rather than participant. His strength exceeded the Cardinal Kaios individually, but he still avoided direct combat when possible. The Supreme Kais occupied an even higher position in the divine hierarchy, watching over all mortal realm from the sacred world of the Kai. These beings worked in sets of 4 directional Kais and 1 Grand Supreme Kai per universe, though many were killed before the current era by various threats. Their role focused on creation and preservation, while gods of destruction handled elimination. Perhaps their greatest limitation was the inability to directly interfere in most mortal affairs without upsetting cosmic balance. The demon realm inhabitants emerged from a dark dimension existing parallel to the regular universe, beings born in environments suffused with malevolent energy that shaped their biology and magical capabilities. Dabura, the demon king, stood as the strongest of their kind before Babidi's control reduced him to a subordinate. These creatures wielded dark magic naturally, performing feats that required years of study for mortal sorcerers. What made Demon Realm residents dangerous was their inherent connection to magic systems most warriors never encountered. Dabura could turn opponents to stone with his saliva, a biological weapon that bypassed conventional defenses entirely. His sword-fighting skills, combined with energy manipulation, allowed him to battle Super Saiyan-level opponents, demonstrating that Demon Realm training produced formidable warriors. The Demon Realm itself featured inverted physics, where darkness strengthened beings rather than weakened them. Inhabitants drew power from negative emotions, growing stronger through hatred, fear, and suffering rather than positive feelings like righteousness or love. This fundamental difference in energy sources meant Demon Realm fighters could access reserves unavailable to conventional warriors. Demonic energy manifested differently than standard ki, appearing dark purple or black rather than the usual white or colored auras mortal fighters displayed. Attacks charged with demonic power carried corrupting influences that could poison victims' energy systems, causing ongoing damage even after the initial strike. Healing such wounds required either sacred techniques or waiting for the corruption to dissipate naturally over time. Social structures in the Demon Realm followed might makes right hierarchies where the strongest ruled through fear and power. Dabura controlled the realm not through birthright or democratic process, but by defeating all challengers to his authority. Lesser demons served powerful lords out of self-preservation, knowing rebellion meant destruction at the hands of beings who viewed mercy as weakness. Lifespans among demonkind varied wildly depending on power levels and exposure to combat. Weak demons died frequently in the realm's constant struggles for dominance, while powerful beings like Dabura potentially lived for millennia. Age appeared to strengthen demons rather than weaken them, as accumulated dark energy enhanced their abilities over centuries. The boundary between demon realm and mortal universe remained mostly sealed through ancient magic, preventing casual travel between dimensions. Powerful sorcerers like Babidi could create temporary portages, but maintaining them required constant energy expenditure. This separation protected both realms from each other, as unrestricted travel would allow demon armies to invade the mortal universe while giving mortal warriors access to the demon realm's resources. Towa and Mira, appearing in Dragon Ball Xenoverse materials, represented next-generation demon realm threats who combined dark magic with scientific understanding. Towa's research into time manipulation and Mira's android-enhanced combat abilities showed demons adapting to include technology alongside their traditional magical strengths, creating hybrid threats that conventional warriors struggled to counter. Even so, their isolation prevented them from dominating the mortal realm despite superior magical knowledge. The Frieza Force remnants and survivors represented not a biological race, but a military organization built around Frieza's empire, drawing members from countless species across the universe. However, Frieza's own race, the Frost Demons, stood out as beings of exceptional natural talent and biological advantages that elevated them far above typical warriors. These creatures possessed transformations that suppressed rather than released power, opposite to most species. What made Frost Demons extraordinary was being born with power levels that exceeded most trained warriors without any practice or development. Baby Frieza possessed enough strength to destroy entire civilizations from birth, leading his father King Cold to recognize the need for power-suppressing transformations. This natural talent meant even the weakest Frost Demon could potentially threaten planetary populations. Their transformation system worked backwards from typical patterns. Where Saiyans transformed to increase power, Frost Demons maintained suppressed forms that limited their true strength, only revealing their actual capabilities when reverting to true final forms. Frieza's first form, with the large horns and bulky build, was actually his most suppressed state, containing perhaps 1% of his total power. Each transformation removal multiplied available power exponentially. Frieza's second form doubled his strength while increasing his size significantly. His third form refined the power further while adding a more alien appearance with elongated skull. Finally, his true form, the smallest and sleekest, contained his full natural power without any artificial limitations. This transformation structure served a practical purpose beyond simple power management. Frieza's true form generated so much ambient energy that simply existing in it could accidentally destroy spaceships, furniture, or weaker subordinates standing too close. The suppressed forms allowed him to interact with normal environments and beings without causing constant collateral damage through passive energy emission. Frost Demons demonstrated remarkable survivability even by Dragon Ball standards. Frieza survived being bisected, losing an arm and enduring planet Namek's explosion with enough vitality remaining for his father to reconstruct him as a cyborg. This incredible durability suggested either redundant biological systems or energy-based consciousness that could persist even when the body suffered catastrophic damage. Cold resistance represented another racial trait, with Frost Demons thriving in temperatures that would freeze most carbon-based life forms solid. Frieza's forces operated in the vacuum of space temporarily, without special equipment, though whether this applied to all Frost Demons or only particularly powerful individuals remained unclear. Their homeworld presumably featured extreme cold environments that shaped this adaptation. The race's weakness, ironically stemmed from their tremendous natural gifts. Because power came so easily, most frost demons never bothered training to improve themselves. Frieza had never trained a single day before his revival, relying entirely on his birth-given strength to conquer the universe. This complacency meant dedicated training produced explosive results when he finally attempted it. Still, their natural dominance meant few ever challenged them successfully before Goku's arrival changed everything. The Heater family, introduced in the Granola, the Survivor arc, represented a criminal organization rather than a distinct biological race. But their manipulation of the Cerealian genocide and subsequent events demonstrated how even non-warrior species could threaten universal peace through cunning and resource control. Gas, the strongest Heater, gained his power through a wish to the Cerealian Dragon Balls rather than natural biology. What made the Heaters dangerous was their business model built on information brokerage and mercenary services. They sold intelligence to the highest bidder, orchestrated planetary invasions for profit, and manipulated conflicts to create markets for their services. This approach generated wealth and influence exceeding what raw combat power alone could achieve in a universe governed as much by economics as strength. Gas's wish-granted power came with a terrible cost. The Cerealian Dragon Balls granted his desire to become the strongest warrior in the universe, but maintaining that status continuously drained his life force. Every battle accelerated his aging, turning a young warrior into an elderly man within hours of intense combat. The wish essentially traded longevity for power, a bargain his siblings made on his behalf. The nature of his wish also meant Gas's power fluctuated based on who else existed in the universe. When Granola made a similar wish shortly before their confrontation, Gas's power automatically adjusted upward to maintain his position as the strongest. This dynamic created an arms race where two wish-enhanced warriors pushed each other to ever higher levels while both burned through their remaining lifespans. Alec, the eldest Heater sibling and family leader, demonstrated how intelligence and planning could compete with raw power in Dragon Ball's universe. He orchestrated the Cerealian extinction 40 years before the main storyline, using Frieza's forces to eliminate the race while the Heaters waited to claim the planet's valuable resources. His schemes spanned decades, showing patience rare among power-focused villains. However, their downfall came from underestimating both Granola's determination and Goku and Vegeta's growth potential. While Gas possessed greater raw power than either Saiyan individually, their experience and adaptability in combat allowed them to discover weaknesses in his wish-granted abilities. The Heaters' reliance on Gas as their enforcer meant once he fell, the organization collapsed. Perhaps they proved that stolen power, no matter how great, couldn't replace genuine strength earned through struggle. The Cerealian race once thrived across their homeworld, beings known for their exceptional vision and marksmanship that made them valued mercenaries and scouts throughout the universe. Their right eye, when properly developed, could magnify distant targets with precision exceeding technological scopes, allowing Cerealian snipers to eliminate threats from kilometers away. Granola, the last surviving Cerealian, inherited these abilities along with his people's trauma. What distinguished Cerealians was their visual acuity combined with natural talent for energy control. Their evolved right eye didn't just magnify images, but could also perceive energy patterns invisible to most species, identifying weak points in opponents' defenses or detecting hidden power sources. This made them exceptional scouts during the Frieza Force's operations before the genocide. Granola himself demonstrated the race's potential when he wished to become the strongest warrior in the universe using the Cerealian Dragon Balls. The wish compressed his remaining lifespan from roughly 150 years down to 3 years, concentrating a lifetime's worth of potential growth into immediate power. His strength jumped from competent bounty hunter to beyond Ultra Instinct Goku's level. The Cerealian Dragon Balls, created by the Namekian Monaito who settled on their planet, could grant 2 wishes but took only months to recharge rather than the year required for Earth's Dragon Balls. This shorter cycle made them valuable to anyone aware of their existence, contributing to the Heater's interest in claiming Serial after its original population's elimination. Before their destruction, Cerealians established a peaceful civilization focused on art, philosophy, and trade rather than conquest or warfare. Their mercenary work served primarily as economic activity rather than ideological expansion, with individuals hiring out their services to fund their home planet's cultural development. This made their extinction particularly tragic, as they posed no threat to Frieza's empire. The genocide itself occurred 40 years before the Granola arc, when Frieza's forces, manipulated by the Heaters, bombarded Serial from orbit. The Cerealians' visual abilities and sniping skills proved insufficient against orbital bombardment and overwhelming numbers. Monayito saved infant Granola by hiding him during the massacre, making the boy the sole survivor of millions. Granola's quest for vengeance against the Saiyans, he believed, destroyed his people, consumed decades of his life. His wish for ultimate power stemmed from trauma and hatred rather than genuine desire for strength, leading him down a self-destructive path that would cost him nearly all his remaining years. Only learning the truth about the Heater's role redirected his anger toward appropriate targets. Their enhanced eye also allowed prediction of opponents' movements by tracking minute muscle contractions and energy shifts before attacks launched. Granola used this ability to counter Goku's Ultra Instinct by reading his body's automatic responses, demonstrating that even autonomous movement could be predicted if one's visual processing reached sufficient levels of sophistication. And yet, their near extinction proved that even the keenest eyes couldn't always see danger coming until too late. The androids and artificial beings created by Dr. Gero technically didn't constitute a natural race, but their numbers and impact on Dragon Ball's universe warranted examination. These constructs ranged from fully mechanical to cyborg hybrids combining organic components with robotic enhancements, each designed to fulfill Gero's vendetta against Goku and the Red Ribbon Army's defeat. What made androids formidable was their unlimited energy models possessed by androids 17 and 18. Unlike organic warriors who tired after extended combat, these cyborgs could fight indefinitely at full strength. Their power didn't deplete from using energy attacks or transformations, giving them significant advantages in prolonged battles against even stronger opponents. Android 16 represented Gero's attempt to create the perfect combat machine, using entirely mechanical components. This full android possessed greater raw power than his cyborg counterparts, but lacked their unlimited energy model, requiring periodic recharging like any machine. His programming focused on eliminating Goku specifically, though his time with the Z fighters awakened something resembling genuine personality. The absorption models, like Cell, demonstrated Gero's most ambitious work. Cell was designed to absorb androids 17 and 18 to achieve his perfect form, combining organic Saiyan, Namekian, and Frieza race cells with android technology. This hybrid approach created a being who could grow stronger through Saiyan biology while maintaining android durability and regeneration capabilities. Cell's regeneration worked through a core located in his head that could reconstruct his entire body, provided it remained intact. This ability surpassed even Namekian regenerations, since Cell could regrow from single cells under certain circumstances. He demonstrated this after self-destructing against Gohan, returning in super-perfect form with a Saiyan Zenkai boost added to his resurrection. Android 20. Dr. Gero himself, after converting his consciousness into an android body, showed how human intelligence could be preserved in mechanical form. His energy absorption model allowed him to drain opponents' ki through his palms, growing stronger by stealing their power during combat. This technique proved effective against careless enemies, but vulnerable to opponents who recognized the absorption method. The weakness of androids varied by model. Mechanical androids could be deactivated with electromagnetic pulses or sufficient physical damage to critical systems. Cyborg models required traditional combat to defeat since their organic components didn't respond to technological countermeasures. Absorption models needed to be completely destroyed or sealed away since their regeneration made conventional killing difficult. Android programming also presented vulnerabilities. Early models followed their directives absolutely, lacking the free will to question orders or adapt strategies beyond their initial parameters. Later models like 17 and 18 developed genuine personalities and independence, suggesting Jero's final designs achieved something approaching true artificial consciousness rather than mere sophisticated programming. Still, they proved that created beings could match or exceed their organic creators' wildest expectations. The Majin race, though consisting primarily of the singular entity Majin Buu, represented beings formed from pure magical energy rather than biological evolution. BBD, an ancient sorcerer, didn't create Buu, but rather discovered and awakened him from slumber that predated recorded history. This pink creature existed as living magic with shape-shifting abilities, regeneration, and the power to absorb other beings. What made Majin Buu unique was his composition from pure mystical energy rather than matter. This fundamental difference meant normal combat rules barely applied. He could survive being blown to atoms and regenerate from even the smallest piece, making him effectively immortal through conventional means. His body stretched, reformed, and adapted to damage in ways biological organisms couldn't replicate. The absorption ability allowed Buu to completely integrate other beings into himself, gaining their power, techniques, and sometimes personality traits. When he absorbed the Grand Supreme Kai millions of years ago, that divine being's gentle nature suppressed Buu's original murderous instincts, transforming him from Kid Buu into the fatter, lazier form first released in the Buu saga. Each absorption permanently altered Buu's capabilities and behavior. Absorbing Gotenks and Piccolo gave him tactical intelligence and fusion techniques. Absorbing Gohan pushed his power to levels where he dominated Vegito before the Potara fusion occurred. These changes demonstrated how Buu's magical nature allowed unlimited power stacking without the biological limits restricting organic warriors. The Candy Beam represented another signature ability, transforming opponents into sweets that Buu could eat. This attack bypassed traditional defenses, since it worked through magic rather than energy, though sufficiently powerful beings could retain their consciousness and abilities even after transformation. Vegito famously fought as a sentient coffee candy, demonstrating that overwhelming power could resist even reality-warping techniques. Kid Buu, the original unabsorbed form, exemplified the Majin race's terrifying potential when unconstrained by absorbed personalities. This small pink demon possessed less raw power than Super Buu's absorbed forms, but made up for it through complete lack of hesitation, mercy, or self-preservation instinct. He destroyed planets for entertainment and attacked with reckless abandon that made him unpredictable. The Majin race's weakness lay in their magical nature, making them vulnerable to specific countermeasures. The Spirit Bomb, gathering energy from living beings and compressing it into pure good, proved effective against Kid Buu because evil magical entities couldn't withstand such concentrated positive energy. Similarly, sealing techniques like the Mafuba could trap Majin beings if executed properly. Oob, the human reincarnation of Kid Buu, suggested that even magical beings passed through the reincarnation cycle after death. This implied Majin entities possessed something equivalent to souls despite their non-biological nature. Oob inherited Buu's massive potential but in human form, requiring training to access the power rather than wielding it instinctively. Perhaps they demonstrated that the line between magic and life blurred at sufficient power levels. The legendary Super Saiyan line, though technically still Saiyans, manifested unique characteristics separating them from standard Saiyan biology. Broly represented the most famous example, a mutant Saiyan born with power exceeding normal limits to such degrees that King Vegeta ordered his execution as an infant. These beings grew stronger continuously during combat, without needing near-death experiences to trigger power increases. What distinguished legendary Super Saiyans was their transformation's nature, where typical Super Saiyan forms multiplied base power by fixed amounts. The legendary transformation stacked power infinitely as long as battle continued. Broly grew visibly stronger throughout his fights, muscles swelling and energy output increasing until his body could barely contain the power coursing through it. Their aura appeared distinctly different from normal Super Saiyan transformations, manifesting as greenish-yellow rather than pure golden. This visual distinction reflected deeper differences in how their energy systems functioned. Legendary Super Saiyans channeled their power through rage and primal emotion rather than disciplined control, creating explosive output at the cost of refined technique. Broly's power in the original non-canon movies showed him tanking attacks from multiple Super Saiyans simultaneously while laughing at their efforts. His legendary form made him essentially unstoppable through conventional combat, requiring the combined energy of Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, Trunks, and Piccolo channeled through Goku's fist to finally pierce his defenses. The canonical version appearing in Dragon Ball Super Broly presented a refined take on the concept. This Broly's power stemmed from harsh survival training on planet Vampa, combined with natural Saiyan talent pushed beyond normal limits. His wrathful form accessed great ape power without transformation, while his Super Saiyan form stacked multiplicatively on that base. Kale from Universe 6 demonstrated that the legendary mutation could occur in other universes, Saiyan populations. Her Berserker transformation manifested similar characteristics to Broly's, with constantly increasing power and greenish aura. However, Caulifla's presence as a stabilizing force allowed Kale to maintain some control rather than losing herself completely to the transformation's rage. The legendary transformation's drawback was its energy consumption and toll on the user's body. Broly's muscles swelled grotesquely during extended use, suggesting the form's power exceeded what Saiyan biology could safely channel long-term. Additionally, the rage fueling the transformation made it difficult to deactivate voluntarily, trapping the user in a berserker state until either exhaustion or external intervention ended the rampage. Training with Goku and Vegeta after the events of Dragon Ball Super Broly allowed canonical Broly to begin controlling his power rather than being controlled by it. This suggested even legendary Super Saiyans could learn discipline and technique given proper instruction, potentially combining their unique advantages with traditional martial arts refinement for unprecedented results. Even so, they remained walking disasters until properly trained and guided. The Shinjin race, from which Supreme Kais descended, originated from the sacred realm outside normal universe boundaries. These beings were born from golden fruits growing on the world tree in the sacred world of the Kai, emerging as fully formed adults with innate magical abilities and divine authority. Shin, the current Supreme Kai of Universe 7, represented this race alongside his fallen colleagues. What made Shinjin exceptional was their role in the cosmic hierarchy as creation gods, balancing the gods of destruction. While destroyers eliminated civilizations and planets to maintain universal balance, Supreme Kais nurtured new life and guided mortal development. This fundamental purpose shaped their abilities toward healing, creation, and protective magic rather than combat techniques. Their lifespan stretched across millions of years, allowing Supreme Kais to observe civilizations rise and fall multiple times during their tenure. Shin himself witnessed the Majin Buu crisis millions of years ago when BBD awakened the demon and killed 4 of the 5 Supreme Kais. This traumatic event shaped his cautious approach to threats in the current era. Kai represented their signature teleportation technique, functioning similarly to Yardrat instant transmission, but not requiring energy signatures as destinations. Supreme Kais could teleport anywhere they visualized clearly, even to places they'd never visited personally. This made them ideal observers and messengers across cosmic distances. Their combat abilities varied significantly between individuals. Elder Kai demonstrated vast magical knowledge, including the Potara fusion technique an ability to unlock hidden potential, but possessed minimal fighting skills himself. Shin could battle competently against Frieza-level threats, but fell far short of the power needed to face Majin Buu or other universe-threatening entities. The weakness of Supreme Kais lay in their dependence on gods of destruction for combat protection. When serious threats emerged requiring divine intervention, Supreme Kais typically relied on their destroyer counterpart to eliminate the danger rather than engaging personally. This division of responsibilities created vulnerabilities if the destroyer was unavailable or unwilling to act. Zamasu, a Supreme Kai in training from Universe 10, demonstrated the danger when Shinjin pursued combat prowess at the expense of wisdom. His exceptional fighting ability for a Supreme Kai combined with extremist philosophy led him to steal Goku's body and attempt mortal genocide across multiple timelines. His actions proved that power without proper guidance could corrupt even divine beings. The Potara earrings, while not exclusive to Supreme Kais, were primarily associated with their race as tools for emergency fusion when facing overwhelming threats. The earrings allowed two beings to fuse permanently when both wore them on opposite ears, creating combinations that could face dangers neither individual could handle alone. This technique saved the universe multiple times, despite Supreme Kais' general weakness in direct combat. Still, their role as nurturers rather than warriors meant they shaped the universe through guidance more than might. The God of Destruction race, though more accurately described as a position filled by various species, represented the apex of destructive power in each universe. These beings were selected from mortal races and trained to wield Hakai energy, the power of destruction that erased matter and energy completely. Beerus, Universe 7's God of Destruction, stood as the most prominent example encountered throughout Dragon Ball Super. What elevated gods of destruction beyond even Supreme Kais was their combat focus and access to Hakai techniques that bypassed conventional durability. When Beerus declared something would be destroyed, that pronouncement carried absolute authority backed by energy specifically designed to unmake creation. His casual sphere of destruction energy could erase entire planets or powerful warriors without the target having any defense. Their power levels far exceeded almost every mortal warrior, with even the weakest god of destruction surpassing most Super Saiyan transformations. Beerus famously defeated Super Saiyan 3 Goku with minimal effort during their first encounter, barely acknowledging the attack that represented Earth's strongest warrior's full power at that time. This gap demonstrated how vast the distance between mortal and divine strength truly measured. Gods of destruction maintained balance in their universes by eliminating stagnant civilizations, dangerous threats, and occasionally planets that annoyed them. Beerus destroyed planets for serving him bad food or losing at video games, demonstrating the capricious nature that came with such absolute power. This casual approach to destruction reflected their role as universal gardeners pruning existence to promote growth. Each god of destruction had an angel attendant who served as mentor, advisor, and occasionally restraint when the destroyer's actions threatened to destabilize their universe. Whis fulfilled this role for Beerus, training the god while also monitoring his destruction patterns to ensure they aligned with cosmic balance requirements. The angel-destroyer relationship was fundamental to how destruction gods functioned. The weakness of gods of destruction stemmed from their connection to their universe's Supreme Kai. If the Supreme Kai died, the god of destruction died automatically, creating a vulnerability that enemies could exploit. This interdependence ensured both creation and destruction gods had incentive to protect each other despite their opposing functions in the cosmic balance. Ultra Ego, Vegeta's answer to Goku's Ultra Instinct, drew on God of Destruction principles taught by Beerus during training. This technique channeled Hakai energy through the user's ego and lust for battle, growing stronger as damage accumulated. Unlike Ultra Instinct's calm detachment, Ultra Ego required embracing combat's thrill and accepting injury as fuel for increasing power. Multiple universes hosted their own gods of destruction, each with distinct personalities and power levels. Champa, Beerus's brother and Universe 6's god of destruction, matched his sibling's strength, though their relationship featured more bickering than cooperation. Other destroyers like Quitella, Moscow, and Velmod demonstrated varied approaches to their role, from strategic planning to brute force application. Perhaps they proved that even destruction served creation when wielded with purpose and restraint. The angel race stood as the strongest beings in the multiverse below the Omni King, divine entities who served as mentors and caretakers to gods of destruction while possessing power that eclipsed their charges completely. Whis, Vados, and the Grand Priest represented this species, beings who maintained perfect mastery of Ultra Instinct as their natural state of existence rather than a transformation requiring intense concentration. What separated angels from all other races was their complete transcendence of normal combat limitations. They moved faster than time itself could track, rewound temporal sequences casually, and demonstrated abilities that redefined what power meant in Dragon Ball's universe. Whis once reversed time 3 minutes to allow Goku a second chance at defeating Frieza, treating temporal manipulation as a minor convenience. Their staff served as focus for these reality-warping abilities, containing technology and magic far beyond anything mortal civilizations could comprehend. Whis used his staff to observe events across the universe in real time, communicate instantly across cosmic distances, and create barriers that could contain attacks from gods of destruction without strain. The staffs seemed to function as extensions of their wielder's consciousness. Ultra Instinct, the technique Goku struggled for years to barely grasp, was the angel's default state of being. Their bodies reacted to threats automatically with perfect efficiency, never wasting movement or energy. This allowed them to defeat opponents far stronger on paper through sheer technical superiority, dodging attacks that should be impossible to avoid and countering with minimal force applied at precise, vulnerable points. Training methodology for angels focused on refining their charges techniques and expanding their understanding of combat rather than simply increasing raw power. Whis taught Goku and Vegeta by identifying fundamental flaws in their approaches, forcing them to reconceptualize how they fought. His lessons emphasized efficiency, awareness, and letting the body move without conscious interference. The Grand Priest, father of all angels and attendant to the Omni King, possessed power that made him functionally omnipotent by any reasonable measure. He organized the tournament of power, created the fighting stage, and demonstrated casual reality manipulation that suggested he operated on a similar level to Zeno himself. His true combat capabilities remained unknown since no situation ever required him to fight seriously. Angel's weakness, if it could be called that, was their strict neutrality in mortal affairs and prohibition against interfering beyond their assigned duties. Whis couldn't simply eliminate universe-threatening villains himself, despite possessing the power to do so easily. This restriction meant angels served as guides and observers rather than active protectors, allowing mortals to determine their own fates. Their immortality appeared absolute with no known method for killing an angel. They existed outside the normal life-death cycle, continuing their duties across eons without aging or degrading. This eternal nature made them perfect caretakers for the multiverse's balance, maintaining cosmic order across timescales that would see entire civilizations rise and fall countless times. Still, their power came with isolation, observing existence without truly participating in the struggles that defined mortal life. The Saiyan race emerged from planet Sadala in Universe 7, though their homeworld was destroyed in civil war before Universe 6's Sadala took prominence in later stories. These warriors evolved on a planet with harsh conditions requiring constant fighting for survival, shaping a culture that valued combat prowess above all else. Their biology included the ability to transform into great apes under full moons, multiplying their power tenfold. What made Saiyans extraordinary was their unique growth mechanism triggered by near-death experiences. When a Saiyan recovered from injuries that brought them close to death, their power level increased dramatically in what was later termed the Saiyan Zenkai boost. This ability rewarded taking risks and surviving dangerous battles, encouraging the aggressive fighting style that defined their warrior culture. The Super Saiyan transformation, once considered legend even among Saiyans themselves, multiplied base power by 50 times in its initial form. Golden hair, teal eyes, and a golden aura marked the transformation that emerged from intense emotional distress combined with sufficient base power. Goku's first transformation occurred when Frieza killed Krillin, the rage and grief triggering the legendary form. Subsequent Super Saiyan forms pushed the concept further. Super Saiyan 2 doubled Super Saiyan's multiplier while adding lightning to the aura and making hair spikier. Super Saiyan 3 eliminated eyebrows and extended hair dramatically while increasing power another 4 times, though energy consumption made the form impractical for extended use outside Otherworld. Super Saiyan God introduced Divine Ki to the transformation lineup, requiring a ritual involving 6 righteous Saiyans channeling their energy into one recipient. The form's crimson aura and slimmer build reflected its focus on refined ki control rather than raw power stacking. Battles in this form created shockwaves that threatened Universe 7's entire structure during Goku's fight with Beerus. Super Saiyan Blue combined Super Saiyan transformation with godly ki mastery, creating a form with intense blue aura that indicated perfect ki control at divine power levels. This state allowed Saiyans to match angels in raw power output while maintaining enough control to avoid destroying their surroundings accidentally. However, stamina drain remained significant without proper mastery. Ultra Instinct, though not Saiyan specific, was first achieved among mortals by Goku during the Tournament of Power. This technique separated consciousness from combat, allowing the body to defend and attack automatically without thought's delay. Perfecting the form required Goku to overcome his Saiyan nature's reliance on emotion and fighting spirit, embracing calm detachment instead. Saiyan tails represented both strength and vulnerability. While the tail allowed great ape transformation, grabbing it caused paralyzing pain and power loss in untrained warriors. Most Earth-raised Saiyans had their tails removed to prevent uncontrolled great ape rampages, though this also cut off access to the Uzaru power without full moon exposure. Their weakness included vulnerability to diseases and biological attacks despite their combat prowess. The heart virus that nearly killed Goku in the Android timeline demonstrated that Saiyans possessed no special immune system advantages. Additionally, their aggressive nature sometimes led to tactical errors as battle lust overrode strategic thinking. Perhaps their greatest strength was the bonds they formed through combat, friendships that pushed them beyond limits biology alone could explain. The Omni King Zeno existed as a supreme being ruling over all 18 universes in the Dragon Ball multiverse. He wasn't a race unto himself, but rather a singular entity whose nature and origin remained completely unexplained throughout all canonical material. His childlike appearance and demeanor masked absolute power that made him the only being all others, including angels and gods of destruction, feared unconditionally. What made Zeno unique even among divine beings was his ability to erase literally anything from existence instantly. He destroyed 6 universes before the current era simply because managing 18 became tedious. During the Tournament of Power, he erased Universe 9 completely, the moment their team was eliminated, demonstrating that his pronouncements of destruction carried immediate effect without technique or energy expenditure. His guards, 2 identical attendants who never left his side, possessed unknown power levels but clearly ranked among the strongest beings in existence. The fact that Zeno, who could erase anything instantly, maintained bodyguards suggested either ceremonial tradition or that even he recognized value in having protectors. No one dared test whether the guards could actually defend Zeno against threats. Zeno's temperament was genuinely childlike rather than a facade hiding malicious intent. He enjoyed simple games, made friends easily, and viewed destruction as neither good nor evil, but simply an option available when he grew bored or annoyed. This innocence made him simultaneously endearing and terrifying, since there were no deeper motivations to predict or manipulate. The future Xeno, brought to the present timeline by Goku after Infinite Zamasu's defeat, proved that multiple versions of the Omni King could coexist. Both Xenos displayed identical personalities and power, treating each other as instant best friends and enjoying each other's company during the Tournament of Power. Their friendship added bizarre warmth to beings capable of unmaking reality. No one knew where Xeno came from, how he obtained his power, or whether his position could be inherited or transferred. The Grand Priest served him loyally but offered no explanations about the Omni King's nature or history. This mystery surrounding his origin elevated Xeno beyond mere power discussions into philosophical questions about the nature of ultimate authority. His palace existed in the sacred realm, above even the world of Void where the Tournament of Power occurred. The structure featured no visible defensive systems because nothing in existence could threaten its occupant. Guards and attendants served ceremonial roles rather than practical protection, creating an environment of absolute security through unassailable might. The Xeno button, given to Goku by Grand Xeno, allowed instant summoning of the Omni King from anywhere in the multiverse. Goku used this device twice, once to bring future Xeno to the present and once to summon Xeno to erase Infinite Zamasu when no other solution existed. The button's existence suggested even Xeno valued friendship enough to make himself available to those he cared about, and yet, despite power that eclipsed everything else in existence, he seemed most pleased by simple companionship and games. The fusion beings, though not technically a race, deserved examination as a category of entities combining multiple individuals into singular warriors exceeding their components. Vegito, Gogeta, and Kefla represented the most powerful examples, each demonstrating that proper fusion techniques could create beings rivaling or surpassing gods of destruction temporarily. What made fusion entities exceptional was the multiplicative rather than additive nature of their power combination. When Goku and Vegeta fused into Vegito using Potara earrings, the result wasn't their powers added together but rather multiplied, creating exponential increases that allowed a Vegito who wasn't even Super Saiyan to dominate Majin Buu's strongest absorbed form. Potara fusion, performed using the Supreme Kai earrings, originally created permanent combinations when both participants were mortals. This changed after the Goku Black arc, when it was revealed that mortal Potara fusions lasted only 1 hour, presumably a safety measure preventing eternal combinations of unworthy users. Supreme Kai fusions remained permanent, explaining old Kai's existence as a fusion between a Supreme Kai and elderly witch. The Metamoran fusion dance created temporary combinations lasting exactly 30 minutes regardless of participants' divine status. Gogeta, formed through Goku and Vegeta performing the synchronized dance, demonstrated power comparable to Vegito, despite the different fusion method. His fight with Broly showcased how fusion entities could completely outclass opponents who individually threatened both component warriors. Personality blending varied between fusion types and individuals. Vegito exhibited cocky confidence exceeding even Vegeta's arrogance, trash-talking opponents while dominating them completely. Gogeta maintained more stoic composure, finishing fights efficiently rather than prolonging them for amusement. These differences suggested fusion didn't simply average personalities, but created new consciousness influenced by both sources. The fusion's weakness lay in time limits and energy consumption, accelerating time limits further. Vegito's Super Saiyan Blue form drained energy so rapidly that his 1-hour fusion lasted mere minutes before separating. Similarly, Gotenks' Super Saiyan 3 transformation consumed their 30-minute fusion time in moments, demonstrating that more powerful forms created proportionally greater energy drain. Kefla, the Potara fusion of Caulifla and Kale from Universe 6, showed fusion entities could access power beyond their components' individual transformations. Her Berserker-influenced Super Saiyan form combined Caulifla's combat skill with Kale's constantly increasing power output, creating a warrior who pushed Goku to Ultra Instinct Sign during the Tournament of Power. Zamasu's fusion with Goku Black created an immortal mortal hybrid with unique properties. Because Zamasu possessed true immortality from a Super Dragon Ball wish, the fusion inherited partial immortality, regenerating from injuries that should have killed him. However, the immortality's incomplete nature meant the fusion showed increasing corruption and instability over time. Perhaps fusion's true lesson was that even the mightiest individuals could transcend their limits through cooperation and unity. The examination of all these races and beings revealed patterns in how power manifested across the Dragon Ball multiverse. Some species like Saiyans evolved biological mechanisms rewarding combat survival, while others like Namekians developed magical traditions and regeneration. The Frost Demons demonstrated that immense natural talent could produce empire builders, though without training the talent stagnated. Divine beings operated on entirely different principles than mortals, wielding Hakai energy or mastering Ultra Instinct through their fundamental nature rather than years of practice. The angels especially showed how consciousness itself could transcend physical limitations when refined to perfection, moving beyond thought into pure action without hesitation or doubt. Technology and magic both offered paths to power independent of biological advantages. The Tuffles nearly held their own against Saiyans through engineering prowess, while Majin Buu's magical composition allowed abilities that biological beings couldn't replicate. These alternative power sources suggested that combat strength alone didn't determine a species' significance or survival chances. What stood out across all categories was how individuals could exceed their species' typical limitations through determination, training, or circumstance. Goku transformed from a low-class Saiyan warrior into someone trading blows with gods of destruction through constant growth and refusing to accept current limits as permanent. Piccolo went from conquering Earth to protecting it, growing beyond his origins through choice rather than biology. The transformation systems available to different races revealed assumptions about strength's nature in Dragon Ball's universe. Saiyans transformed to multiply their base power through emotional triggers or divine key mastery. Frost demons transformed to suppress their overwhelming natural strength. Majin beings absorbed others to integrate their abilities. Each approach reflected the species' evolutionary history and relationship with power. Cooperation emerged as a force multiplier across nearly all races. Namekian fusion, Saiyan teamwork, even the Frieza Force's organizational structure demonstrated that combining strength could overcome individual limitations. The multiverse's strongest beings often worked in pairs, gods of destruction with angels, supreme Kais with each other, and Saiyans finding strength in rivalry and friendship. The cosmic hierarchy, placing Xeno above angels, above gods of destruction, above supreme Kais, above mortals, created a structure where power corresponded roughly to responsibility. Those capable of universal destruction bore the duty of maintaining balance, while those focused on creation nurtured new life. This balance suggested the multiverse required both creators and destroyers, operating in harmony. Still, exceptions to every pattern emerged constantly throughout Dragon Ball's stories. Humans, despite their relative physical weakness, contributed significantly to Earth's defense through technique innovation and tactical thinking. Krillin's Destructo Disc could cut through opponents far stronger than himself. Master Roshi's martial arts wisdom guided generations of fighters, including Goku himself. These contributions reminded viewers that raw power alone didn't determine a being's value or impact. The role of training and mentorship couldn't be overstated when examining why certain individuals transcended their species' typical limits. Goku learned from Master Roshi, King Kai, Whis, and eventually Murus, each teacher expanding his understanding of combat and energy control. Vegeta's pride initially prevented him from accepting instruction, but his eventual willingness to learn from others allowed growth matching Goku's despite starting from similar baselines. Genetics provided advantages, but dedication determined outcomes. Half Saiyans like Gohan possessed greater potential than pure Saiyans, according to multiple sources. Yet Gohan's scholarly interests prevented him from surpassing his father until crisis demanded his full attention. Meanwhile, pure-blooded Saiyans like Goku and Vegeta compensated for their supposedly lower potential through relentless training and combat experience. The Dragon Balls themselves represented a force outside the typical power hierarchy, granting wishes that could elevate mortals to divine status or restore destroyed planets with a single request. Super Shenron especially demonstrated power exceeding even gods of destructions, since he could resurrect entire universes that Zeno had erased. This wish-granting ability made dragons uniquely influential despite their general avoidance of direct combat. Time travel and alternate timelines introduced complications to any definitive ranking, since different versions of the same character could exist at vastly different power levels simultaneously. Future Trunks lived in a timeline where neither Goku nor Vegeta survived to protect Earth, forcing him to become strong enough to battle threats alone. That desperation created a warrior who, despite technically being weaker, possessed determination matching or exceeding his main timeline counterpart. Environmental factors shaped every race's development in ways that echoed through their combat styles and abilities millions of years later. Saiyans evolved on a harsh world requiring constant fighting, creating a culture that viewed peace as weakness and battle as the highest calling. Namekians developed on a peaceful planet with 3 suns, allowing them to focus on spiritual and magical development rather than martial prowess. The question of which race truly ranked strongest ultimately depended on criteria used for judgment. In raw destructive capability, Zeno stood alone. In martial technique and efficiency, angels had no peers. For transformation potential and continuous growth, Saiyans exceeded all mortal races. Each species brought unique strengths to the multiverse's tapestry. Perhaps the real lesson was that power took countless forms across different species and individuals. Some were born with it, others trained for it, and a few stumbled into it through wishes or desperate circumstances. What mattered more than the source was how beings chose to use whatever strength they possessed. The multiverse's diversity ensured no single approach to power dominated permanently. When Saiyan seemed unstoppable, androids with unlimited energy appeared. When physical might reached its peak, Ultra Instinct demonstrated that technique could surpass raw strength. The constant evolution of threats and responses kept the universe from stagnating under any one power paradigm. And yet, across all these variations, certain principles remained constant throughout Dragon Ball's exploration of strength and ability. The bond between warriors often proved as important as individual power. Goku's friendships motivated his growth repeatedly, whether protecting Earth from Frieza or training with Vegeta to reach new heights. The fusion dance and Potara earrings formalized this concept, but even without literal fusion, teamwork and mutual support elevated fighters beyond what isolation could achieve. Emotional connections drove transformations and power increases across multiple species. Super Saiyan awakenings typically emerged from rage and loss. Namekian fusions required deep trust between participants. Even angels, who seemingly transcended such emotions, maintained relationships with their assigned gods of destruction that influenced both beings' effectiveness. The pursuit of strength for its own sake often led to villainous paths, while power sought to protect others created heroes. Frieza's natural talent combined with his first serious training session produced Golden Frieza, but his selfish motivations meant he never achieved the discipline necessary to refine the form properly. Meanwhile, Goku's desire to protect Earth drove him to master forms that required suppressing the very battle lust that defined Saiyan nature. Humility paradoxically accelerated growth more reliably than arrogance. Vegeta's pride prevented him from achieving Super Saiyan transformation for years after Goku managed it, and his early refusal to train seriously under Whis delayed his access to godly ki. Only when he accepted his limitations and sought help from those who could teach him did his progress match Goku's. The multiverse's structure suggested that balance was fundamental to existence rather than merely preferential. Gods of destruction eliminated stagnant elements, while Supreme Kais nurtured new growth. Angels maintained neutrality while guiding both. This cosmic machinery required all parts functioning in harmony, suggesting that diversity of purpose mattered as much as strength. Mortality itself provided advantages that eternal beings lacked, primarily the urgency that limited lifespans created. Mortals trained desperately because they knew their time was finite, pushing themselves harder than beings who could procrastinate across millennia. This intensity of purpose allowed Saiyans like Goku to achieve in decades what took angels eons to perfect. The Dragon Ball universe ultimately suggested that potential existed in every being regardless of species or circumstances. Some possessed more natural advantages than others, but determination, proper training, and willingness to grow could overcome nearly any initial disadvantage. The strongest warriors weren't simply those born powerful, but those who refused to accept their current limits as permanent. Perhaps that was the greatest lesson across all these races and transformations and power-ups. If you're still awake halfway through, maybe subscribe before you drift off. And tell me what time it is where you're watching from. The study of these various species and entities revealed as much about Dragon Ball's themes as about combat mechanics. Power served as the universe's primary language, but the conversations it enabled explored friendship, sacrifice, redemption, and growth. Every transformation represented character development as much as numerical power increases. Goku's journey from low-class Saiyan warrior to someone chatting casually with the Omni King demonstrated that status determined nothing about ultimate potential. His cheerful personality and love of fighting carried him further than any genetic advantages, finding teachers and challenges that pushed him constantly beyond previous limits. His approach to strength, seeing it as endless journey rather than destination, defined his success. Vegeta's parallel path showed that even those starting from privilege and arrogance could grow beyond their origins through accepting their mistakes and learning humility. His evolution from genocidal prince to family man fighting to protect Earth demonstrated that character mattered more than birthright. The same Saiyan biology that made Goku Earth's champion also produced its reformed protector in Vegeta. The Namekians' peaceful nature didn't prevent them from producing warriors like Piccolo, who could stand alongside Saiyans in defending the universe. Their fusion ability and regeneration provided alternatives to brute force approaches, showing that every race contributed unique perspectives to solving problems. Even their Dragon Balls, created through magic rather than combat, proved as strategically important as any transformation. Androids demonstrated that created beings could develop genuine consciousness and emotional connections despite artificial origins. Android 16's love of nature, 17's protective instincts toward his park's animals, and 18's devotion to Krillin showed that the line between natural and artificial life mattered less than the choices beings made regardless of their creation method. Majin Buu's transformation from universe-destroying demon to Earth's protector through Mr. Satan's friendship illustrated that even the most destructive beings could change given proper influences and acceptance. The same magical nature that made him nearly unkillable also gave him the capacity for childlike joy and simple pleasures when someone finally showed him kindness without fear or hatred. These character arcs across different species suggested that Dragon Ball's universe, while obsessed with power scaling and combat, ultimately valued growth in all its forms. Physical strength increases provided clear, measurable progress, but emotional maturity, tactical thinking, and moral development mattered equally to the stories being told through endless battles and transformations. The Tournament of Power especially highlighted how different universes' species approached strength through their own unique philosophies. Universe 11's Pride Troopers emphasized justice and teamwork. Universe 6's Saiyans discovered transformations through friendship rather than rage. Universe 2 celebrated love as power's source. Each approach proved viable despite differing completely from Universe 7's combat-focused methodology. Jiren's overwhelming strength came from solitary training and rejection of bonds after his master's death. Yet his philosophy ultimately proved insufficient when Goku's trust in his friends allowed Ultra Instinct's mastery. The contrast suggested that power derived from isolation had limits that community-supported growth could exceed, regardless of initial strength disparities. Hit's time manipulation abilities showed that unconventional techniques could compete with raw power if applied creatively. His time skip ability initially seemed impossible to counter, and only Goku's development of techniques specifically to predict and work around the time stopping allowed him to fight Hit effectively. This demonstrated how diversity in power types kept combat interesting despite ever-increasing power levels. The various races' different transformation philosophies reflected their cultural values and environmental pressures. Saiyans transformed to multiply combat power because they valued strength above all else. Namekians fused to combine wisdom and abilities because their culture emphasized community. Frost demons transformed to suppress power because their natural strength exceeded what their bodies could safely channel continuously. Each approach made sense within its species context, while demonstrating that no single path to power was objectively superior to all others. The multiverse's diversity ensured constant innovation in combat techniques and strategic approaches as different philosophies encountered and adapted to each other through friendly competition or actual warfare. Perhaps the rankings mattered less than understanding what made each race unique and valuable in the cosmic tapestry. Strength was important in Dragon Ball's universe, but purpose, community, and growth potential determined which beings shaped existence's direction rather than merely surviving within it. The Angels' perfect mastery of Ultra Instinct gave them overwhelming combat advantages, yet their non-intervention policy meant mortals determined their own fates, despite being cosmically weaker. This suggested that agency and self-determination held value exceeding raw power in the multiverse's moral framework. Gods of destruction could erase planets instantly, but their role required them to make difficult decisions about which civilizations deserved elimination and which merited chances to grow. This burden of judgment weighed on them despite their incredible might, showing that greater power brought proportionally greater responsibility. Supreme Kais nurtured life across eons, but their creation focus left them vulnerable to combat threats requiring their destroyer counterparts' intervention. This interdependence between creation and destruction forces ensured neither could become too powerful without the other providing balance. Even Zeno, with absolute power to erase anything instantly, surrounded himself with attendants and sought friendship with Goku rather than ruling through fear alone. His childlike desire for companionship suggested that even omnipotence couldn't satisfy the need for genuine connection and relationships. These patterns across every power level indicated that strength served best when balanced with wisdom, connection, and purpose, rather than existing as an end unto itself. The multiverse's strongest beings weren't necessarily its happiest or most fulfilled, and in many cases their power isolated them from normal experiences that gave life meaning. Goku's simple love of fighting and meeting strong opponents gave him constant motivation to improve, while his friendships provided stakes worth protecting when threats emerged. This combination of personal drive and external purpose created sustainable growth patterns that beings motivated purely by ambition or revenge couldn't maintain long-term. The examination of these countless races and individuals ultimately circled back to Dragon Ball's core message that growth was possible for anyone willing to pursue it honestly. Species provided starting points and certain advantages or disadvantages, but they didn't determine destinies in any absolute sense. And so these civilizations and beings continued their existence across the multiverse, each contributing to the whole in ways both obvious and subtle. Some shaped reality through combat, others through creation, and still others simply by existing as examples of different possible paths to power and purpose. Their stories would continue unfolding across countless battles and peaceful interludes alike, the power rankings shifting as new transformations emerged and young warriors surpassed their predecessors. but certain truths would persist regardless of temporary power fluctuations or the introduction of new overwhelming threats. Strength came in many forms, and the strongest being by raw power wasn't necessarily the most important or influential. Community and connection multiplied individual capability beyond what biology alone allowed. Growth never truly stopped for those who refused to accept their current state as their final form. The multiverse would keep turning, warriors would keep training, and new challenges would keep emerging to test everyone regardless of their position in any power ranking. That endless cycle of challenge and growth defined existence in Dragon Ball's universe more than any snapshot evaluation of who currently ranked strongest. Perhaps it was enough to know that strength existed, that it could be pursued through dedication, and that how one used whatever power they achieved mattered more than the amount possessed. The races ranked here would continue their stories beyond this examination, growing stronger or fading into history based on choices they made going forward. These were the races, the beings, the forces that shaped Dragon Ball's multiverse through their unique strengths and approaches to power. Some would rise further, others would fall, but all had earned their place in the tapestry through combat, creation, or simply surviving in a universe where strength was the primary currency of significance. In the end, they all contributed to a universe that never stopped evolving, never stopped testing its inhabitants, and never allowed anyone to rest on past achievements for long before new challenges emerged demanding growth beyond what seemed possible. The legacy each race left behind told stories beyond simple power comparisons. The Saiyans' near extinction, followed by their transformation into Earth's protectors, demonstrated redemption's possibility even for warrior cultures built on conquest. What began as a species serving Frieza's empire ended with individuals like Goku inspiring hope across multiple universes through their determination and moral growth. Namekian culture's preservation through Piccolo and the survivors who settled on New Namekian ensured their magical traditions and peaceful philosophy continued despite Frieza's attempt at genocide. Their Dragon Balls became tools for restoration and healing rather than weapons, reflecting their species' values even as individual Namekians like Piccolo became powerful warriors defending those same peaceful ideals. The Frost Demon race's reputation suffered from Frieza's tyranny, yet his brother, Cooler, and the alternate universe's Frost suggested not all members followed identical paths toward evil. Their species possessed potential for both tremendous malevolence and controlled power if individuals chose discipline over casual cruelty. The race itself was neutral. Individual choices determined whether their strength protected or oppressed. Human contributions to Earth's defense, while often overshadowed by Saiyan transformations, provided crucial support through technique innovation, tactical thinking, and emotional anchoring that kept alien warriors connected to the planet they protected. Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and others represented humanity's refusal to become irrelevant despite the escalating cosmic threats. Master Roshi especially embodied this human persistence, training students who eventually surpassed him by impossible margins, yet continuing to refine his own abilities across centuries of life. His appearance in the Tournament of Power, fighting alongside Goku and Vegeta, despite his comparatively minuscule power level, demonstrated that experience and technique retained value even when raw strength gaps became astronomical. The android legacy proved equally complex, with beings like 16, 17, and 18 transcending their original programming to develop genuine personalities, relationships, and moral frameworks independent from Dr. Gero's revenge obsession. Their unlimited energy models gave them endurance advantages over organic warriors, but their real strength came from choosing to protect rather than destroy. Cell represented the dark potential of combining multiple species' abilities through forced integration. Yet his existence also demonstrated how biological synthesis could create beings exceeding their component parts' limitations. His absorption of androids 17 and 18 showed another form of fusion beyond the Metamoran dance or Potara earrings, though achieved through conquest rather than cooperation. The Majin race's singular representative in Majin Buu showed how magical beings operated under different rules than biological life forms. His regeneration from individual cells, candy bean transformation attacks, and absorption ability made him effectively unkillable through conventional combat methods. Only the spirit bomb's pure concentrated energy could overcome his magical nature's resistance to physical damage. Mr. Satan's friendship with Boo proved that even the most destructive beings could change when shown genuine kindness. Their relationship demonstrated that emotional connections could reshape personalities as profoundly as physical transformations altered combat capabilities. Boo's evolution from universal threat to Earth's guardian happened through friendship rather than defeat. The divine races occupied positions overseeing mortal development without directly controlling it, creating systems where mortals determined their own fates despite cosmic oversight. Supreme Kais nurtured civilizations, while gods of destruction pruned stagnant elements, maintaining balance through their opposing yet complementary functions. This divine bureaucracy ensured the multiverse's diversity rather than imposing uniform development patterns. Angels served as the ultimate neutral observers, possessing overwhelming power yet bound by non-interference policies that prevented them from solving mortal problems directly. Their training of gods of destruction and occasional mortal students like Goku provided guidance without removing the challenges that drove growth. This hands-off approach respected mortals' agency, despite the angels' capacity to resolve any crisis effortlessly. The Omni King's position above even angels created a final authority whose whims shaped reality across all 18 universes. Yet Zeno's childlike innocence and desire for friendship suggested that even ultimate power couldn't satisfy the need for genuine companionship. His friendship with Goku provided something his authority couldn't command, demonstrating that some values transcended any power hierarchy. These patterns across species suggested that Dragon Ball's universe, despite its combat focus, explored themes extending beyond strength measurements. Power provided the medium through which characters expressed themselves, but growth, friendship, redemption, and purpose gave those expressions meaning that pure strength comparisons couldn't capture. The Tournament of Power's mortal level system attempted to quantify civilizations' overall development beyond combat strength, incorporating factors like culture, technology, and social harmony. Universe 7's relatively low mortal level, despite hosting warriors like Goku and Vegeta, indicated that raw individual power didn't necessarily elevate entire civilizations without broader development. Universe 11's high mortal level reflected their Pride Troopers' focus on justice and social order, creating stable societies even though their strongest warrior, Jiren, focused on solitary power rather than community bonds. This suggested that collective civilization quality mattered as much as individual peak strength when evaluating universes' overall success. The erased universes served as reminders that even divine protection didn't guarantee survival when fundamental quality metrics fell too low. Zeno's willingness to eliminate entire universes for underperformance created stakes extending beyond individual battles to civilizational development across eons. This raised questions about whether races deserved preservation based purely on potential or required demonstrating actual achievement. Universe 6's Saiyans demonstrated how different environmental pressures and cultural values could shape the same species toward completely different outcomes. While Universe 7's Saiyans became conquerors, Universe 6's Saiyans developed as defenders who discovered Super Saiyan through friendship rather than rage. This parallel evolution showed that biology alone didn't determine destiny when cultural and environmental factors differed. The various races' approaches to conflict resolution reflected their values as much as their power levels. Namekians preferred negotiation and sought violent confrontation only when peaceful options failed. Saiyans embraced battle as natural and desirable, seeing combat as the highest form of interaction. Humans attempted diplomacy but accepted fighting when necessary to protect their world and loved ones. These philosophical differences meant that power rankings captured only one dimension of what made races significant in the multiverse's functioning. Combat strength determined survival against immediate threats, but long-term civilizational success required balancing military capability with cultural development, technological advancement, and social cohesion. The Dragon Balls themselves represented the ultimate trump card available to multiple races through Namekian magic. Their wish-granting capabilities could resurrect the dead, restore destroyed planets, or even grant immortality under certain circumstances. This reality-altering power meant that races with access to Dragon Ball creators possessed strategic advantages beyond what their combat abilities alone suggested. Super Shenron especially demonstrated wish-granting taken to its absolute limit, capable of resurrecting entire universes that Xeno had erased. This made the Super Dragon Balls potentially more powerful than even gods of destruction in specific applications, though their scattered nature across universes and language requirements limited accessibility. The Time Rings and Potara Earrings showed how divine artifacts could provide advantages that biological evolution couldn't replicate. Supreme Kai's access to these tools gave them capabilities beyond their combat strength, allowing time travel observation or emergency fusion when facing overwhelming threats. This demonstrated that equipment and technique could compensate significantly for raw power disadvantages. Capsule Corporation's technology provided Earth with advantages that helped humanity remain relevant despite lacking natural transformations or extraordinary biological gifts. Bulma's inventions included time machines, gravity training chambers, and space-capable vehicles that enabled adventures and training opportunities otherwise impossible. This technological excellence showed how scientific advancement could compete with magical or biological advantages. The hyperbolic time chamber, also known as the Room of Spirit and Time, provided another example of how environmental manipulation could accelerate development beyond normal training's pace. 1 day outside equaled 1 year inside, allowing warriors to compress decades of training into manageable timeframes. Access to such facilities gave Earth's defenders training advantages that partially offset their species' natural limitations. Senzu beans represented another crucial resource that allowed weaker warriors to survive encounters with far stronger opponents. These magical beans instantly healed all injuries and restored energy completely, essentially providing full recovery mid-battle if fighters could create opportunities to consume them. Korin's tower, serving as the bean's source, gave Earth strategic advantages that pure combat power couldn't replicate. The sacred water, despite its misleading name being ordinary water requiring drinkers to simply believe in themselves, showed how psychological factors influenced power expression. Goku's early training included various trials teaching mental discipline alongside physical conditioning, suggesting that mindset shaped how effectively warriors could access their full potential. Ultra-divine water represented actual supernatural enhancement, unlocking hidden power at the risk of death if the drinker's body couldn't handle the transformation. Goku's survival and power increase from consuming it during his original Dragon Ball training demonstrated how magical enhancement methods could accelerate development when biological means reached temporary limits. The Paradise Plant from Universes 11 showed how other universes developed their own power-up methods through different evolutionary paths and discoveries. These universe-specific resources meant that comparing races' pure biological capabilities missed crucial context about what environmental factors and cultural developments enhanced or limited their practical strength expression. Still, beneath all these variables and complications, certain fundamental truths about power persisted across the multiverse's countless variations and exceptions. Thanks for drifting through these Dragon Ball stories with me tonight. If you're ready for more, there's another calm video waiting just to the left. Let it guide you deeper into rest. You might fall asleep to something new.